Hello and welcome to Lost in Chronologically Lost, where in these episodes we find that the ultimate solution to your problems is unplugging it and plugging it back in.
And in these episodes, we also see what is literally the last shot of the show.
I did kind of figure. I could put together the context clues of what they were going for.
Yeah, I mean, also you can read the episode titles of the next few episodes and see that they're all just titled Epilogue 1, Epilogue 2.
I vaguely pieced together what's going on here. I'm not exactly sure why, but Desmond kind of spelled some of it out. It's not what I expected. It's really not what I expected the final season of the show to do.
Yeah, see, it's the thing that nobody expected. This is the thing that it did to Refresh, to be like, hey guys, it's the final season, come watch.
So how season 4 did flash forwards.
Sort of. I will explain more about it when we actually watch it next week, okay?
Sure.
It should make more sense by
good?
then. I really liked it. And I think you will really like it. Because what I will say is that it's like, the last 5 episodes have like fan fiction level writing, but it's the fan fiction level writing that I wanted when it's the final season of a show I've been watching for so long.
It's Lost. Like,
yeah, that's why I kept saying there's 85% of me that it's like I think you'll really like it, but then there's 15% of me that's where you will hate it. Like some people really hate it.
I'll have to see it, but it's Lost, so I'm kind of used to just rolling with things and enjoying them for what they are.
Okay, so where do we begin with these episodes?
We get that Jack wakes up in a boat with Saeed. I think that there's a kind of a habit in Season 6 where we never really stick with the situation, and there's some situations I kind of would have enjoyed seeing more of. Like, at the end of last time, we saw Jack and Smokey together, and I was like, ooh, we're gonna get, a little thing of them together. But we're just, immediately going to Jack reuniting with the people that he just left again. Where I feel like, Jack swimming away from the rest of the gang was at one point, cool, something... I don't know, it felt like they wrote it for that moment, but not because they were planning on doing that much more with that.
Well, it's kind of complicated. I mean, I can see it here because it's... now he's just mounting the rescue mission with the smoke monster and everything.
I don't know, it's just like I can... Sorry. I know I'm making noise. Yeah, I mean, it's not only this. I feel like there are a lot of different moments in this season or this stretch of episodes that are kind of like this, and none of them are that big of a problem on their own. But I do feel like, Season 6 is, even though it's not paced as fast as, Season 4, it kind of is just constantly jumping to the next thing.
That's fair, yeah.
Anyway, so, after that, Widmore's people...
The main group gets put in the cages again.
And Sawyer is not happy about that.
Yeah, and to be fair, I completely forgot this ever happened because it lasts for all of 5 seconds. Because immediately the smoke monster just shows up and breaks him up.
So, Sawyer just tries to take a gun, but they're like, yeah, we'll just kill Kate. She's not on the list. And, yeah, no, they get back up in there.
Yeah. And he's like, Kate, let's go leave on the plane instead. And the Man in Black says, you should trust me because I could kill everyone here, but I'm choosing to help. Which, as we'll see later, is a complete lie, and he cannot help. He cannot kill these people, and is forced to try and subtly work with them in order to cause their own demise.
He's a good manipulator. So, he says, he did say, he thought that Jack wanted to leave, and he also was saying that Jack was also had to say that, they're not his people, and I think that's just, more of the whole Jack is a leader, he's not one of them thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and so Sawyer tells Kate, he's like, yeah, your name was on the wall, but it was crossed out, so I don't think he actually needs you.
Yeah, and meanwhile, Jin and Sun talk about their kid. That's really nice. I disagree with killing them.
See, this is why, not on recording, a couple weeks ago, I asked Matthew, I'm like, if you could change one thing in the show, just one thing, what would it be? And at the time he said, I wouldn't have Shannon killed. And I would agree with that. But for me, and I asked that a couple weeks ago because I knew after watching these episodes, for me, the one thing I would change is let Jin live and go home to his daughter.
You can even kill
That's
Sun.
the one thing I would
It would be
change.
tragic. It's more tragic if you kill Sun and let Jin go without her.
Yeah, you could have let Jin live. And they did receive a lot of blowback for, like, not for Sun dying, they were like, okay. But for Jin, they were like, really?
Because I just feel like it wasn't really necessary in any way. Like they didn't like write themselves into a situation where they couldn't figure out how to save Sun. They did that to be tragic because they needed some character deaths to make the stakes feel real.
And it's not like the rest of the season, considering there's only like 2 more episodes, wouldn't work without...
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't think...
With Jin there, like, Jin could be there and that would play out the exact same way.
The thing is, they kind of misjudged things, I think. They're like, they didn't need to do this. I get why they thought they did, but they really didn't. And to me, when the death does feel like it's just thrown in for stakes, then it makes it feel more fake to me. Like, because I know the writers just did it because...
I get it. Yeah, no, I'm kind of conflicted because when you just look at it in a vacuum, in that moment, it's like, it's sad and it's tragic, but it's a beautiful scene. But when you pull back and be like, remember that there's a daughter out there that they both have, it's kind of like, I don't know about this one, Chief.
Yeah. Whole, like, multi-season plot of wanting them to reunite and wanting Jin to see his daughter. Like, that whole trolling backstory where Jin was getting the big stuffed animal for some client's kid and not, it was a different time than when Sun was giving birth.
See, and it's so funny, too, because we're watching these 2 at a time. And I was worried, like, early on when we were doing this, I was worried. I was like, I know that Jin and Sun die the episode after they get reunited. I'm like, but luckily, since we had, like, some sort of issue at one point where we only watched 1 episode... It changed to where you got to have at least a week where they were reunited together before they died.
Yeah.
Because I was worried you'd go from immediate reunification to death.
Well, meanwhile, Smokey shows up and he fucks shit up, and we get this thing of like, I can't reach the keys, and then it's just like, no, Jack is just there, we'll just let you out.
Yeah. And then we see the Man in Black, they have a sort of mini conversation that doesn't really mean anything. Then we see the Man in Black kill some of Whitmore's men by the plane that he has turned out to have rigged with C4.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Which, I mean, if he wanted to kill them, why wouldn't he just use the plane? Maybe because, like, maybe because the C4 was too obvious, so he thinks they would have noticed it too, and it's better to trick them.
Yeah, I'm not sure why. I don't know. It's strange.
I mean, the C4 was kind of obvious. It was kind of noticeable that the wires were right there.
Yeah. And then he says, and it's like, well, why would Whitmore do that? And he says it's because he wants to get us all into a confined space we have no hope of getting out of, and then blow us all to bits. And it's like, great 20-minute foreshadowing there.
I don't really follow what Whitmore's overall plans are.
I think Whitmore's plans were to just try and defeat the Man in Black somehow.
It doesn't really add together for me. I don't get what, like, he specifically wanted to do, or like why. I don't see the connection between various things we saw him do and what he's actually done.
Yeah, I think that's why they added the thing of like, Jacob came to talk to me and told me something.
Yeah, which like that explains why he brought Desmond, but it doesn't explain much else. I mean, if the Man
I guess maybe it could be like, after I've defeated that the smoke monster, maybe then I can rule the island like I wanted to before.
I guess.
Blah blah blah.
Yeah. Anyway,
so the Man in Black's like, well, let's just use the submarine.
Yeah. And Sawyer is like, hell yeah, we're getting out of here. And then Sawyer's like, hey Jack, no, this is fucked up. Make sure he doesn't get on.
Yeah. So they pretty easily infiltrate the sub and capture it.
Whole Metal Gear scene, and then we just get Jack push, and it's like, whoever told you needed to stay was wrong. He's like, Locke told me, and he pushes him in.
Well, before that, we do see the Man in Black inconspicuously switch out Jack's backpack.
We do.
And
then, Kate gets shot in the shoulder, and we just have a whole... Sorry. We have a whole, Alright, let me start over. Kate gets shot in the shoulder, and we have just, a whole sequence of, defending her, Claire shooting, Jack needing to treat her, and Sawyer ends up shutting out both Claire and Smokey, and with Jack still on while he didn't want to be.
Yeah. And then he's like, oh, okay, I have like a first aid kit in my pack. Let me go open that up. Oh, there's a bomb.
Yep.
So,
and
then we have,
Locke,
a whole scene of them stressing about this bomb and what to do.
Yeah, Jack says, just do nothing. He can't kill us, so it's a bluff. And it's like, no. And Sawyer's like, no, I have to pull the wires out. And I feel like at some level it's kind of a culmination of a lot of the show that Jack and Sawyer are the ones sort of disagreeing on what to do here. I kind of like that they work this in. I'm not really sure.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if, like, have faith versus pull out the wires of the bomb really parallels the nature of the disagreements. But either way, it comes down to them two disagreeing.
Well, I think it's also, take it back to what happened, last season. For them, it was just a few days ago of, again, them arguing over some bomb, it turned to end. Jack was wrong, and it caused the death of, Sawyer's basically wife at that point. Let's be real. And so, I can see why Sawyer's just like, you know what? I'm just not going to trust Jack. I'm going to go with my gut here, and unfortunately, his gut is wrong, and it just causes the timer to go faster. I do wonder why it didn't cause it to instantly explode.
That's just the way that it rigged it. I feel like it might be easier to make a timer go faster than to skip a timer.
And it's more dramatic for the timer to suddenly start speeding up.
So then, Said says, Desmond's in the well, you've got to do this, Jack, and he just runs to the other side of the ship to sacrifice himself. I'm fine with Said's ending being sacrificing himself. We just should have had a better plot.
I was gonna say I have such a problem with this because what Said ends up doing, which is not killing Desmond and basically, letting himself die in order to give the others a chance to live. What does any of that have to do with I can no longer feel emotions? I'm an empty... What? That has nothing to do with anything. This was just going back to normal Said. What just...
I feel why did we need just in terms of how, he was acting, both, the actor was acting and Said was acting, I feel like after Desmond pointed out to him that, killing me would be fucked up, I feel like after that, Said basically went back to normal Said.
Yeah, but it's we didn't need that. I disagree with having that.
I feel like Said is a hero, so I'm fine with him, heroically sacrificing himself. And Said's whole arc is about regretting what he's done as a torturer and trying to be a better person and becoming a hero. And during the first half of the show, we got him being so good and so helpful. And then I feel like we should have just gotten more of that to build up to him being someone who will sacrifice himself instead of this whole edgy nonsense where he became an even worse person and then regretted it even more and then felt nothing and then was like, actually, I'll be good in the last 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And to be clear, I would also like if Said lived, because Said's the best character before this.
I think Said is a character who ultimately had to die just due to... I think after Said got back to the real world and became a hitman again, working for Ben, I think at that point that's where it's like, okay, that character has to die to end.
I would also be fine with rewriting all of that.
That's okay, but that's going back to rewriting so many... That changes the plot of the entire show at that point.
Anyway, we have this whole struggle of trying to get Sun uncrushed by this thing, which once they get the thing off, turns out she's just still trapped by another thing.
Yeah. So everybody else leaves, and then Jin and Sun, they die together, and it's very sad, but it's also like,
Why?
really.
So we get our main four on the beach, and Jack cries because these are the main four.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the Man in Black is like, it's time to finish what we started. And I will say here, there's a deleted scene apparently that explains what kind of happens here, where he's like, okay, Claire, we're gonna go. The gist is he's like, okay, Claire, let's go kill the rest of those people. And Claire's like, I'm not gonna go kill my friends. Bye, and leaves.
Yeah.
So that's why Claire's no longer with him.
That is
I'm like, that's a really weird. It's like
certified Claire.
That's a really weird scene to cut.
Certified Claire moment. Anyway,
Anyway, what I wanted to discuss here, though, is... So here's where we finally learn that the Man in Black cannot kill people. At least he can't kill people who are still, like, Jacob's candidates. Which really puts a lot of his actions in the past into some kind of, like, weird question, but also kind of makes some things make a little bit more sense. Like, why was he able to kill Echo when he wasn't able to kill Locke, right? Something like that. And the kind of explanation we see here is that, as Jacob will say later, all of you were broken and flawed, and you needed this island to be better. And in Echo's death episode, which obviously they weren't planning for this whole thing, but I think this actually does add up, is it's Echo reflecting on the sort of bad things he's done in his life, but he ultimately decides that, no, those weren't flaws, because I did what I had to do in order to make a better life for other people. And I think because of that, because he rejected the fact that he was even flawed in the first place, he no longer became a candidate, because he was too thing. But I could see maybe the Man in Black being like, okay, but this guy's still like on the edge. He could fall back into being flawed. So I'm gonna kill him right now just to get this out of the way and make sure.
I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, and you can also see how he pits people against each other with Rousseau and brain and like mind warping or whatever her people to cause her to become kind of a psycho, and all these various things. Also, it even makes more sense for what he did to Nikki and Paulo, because he's like, he can't kill them, but who's to say he can't just paralyze them and cause other people to think they're dead and bury them alive? It's like, it's fucking Nikki and Paulo, but apparently they were on the wall too. So
imagine a world where Nikki or Paulo became the replacement.
Well, they were very flawed, so yeah, I don't know. It's interesting when you rewatch the series with that in mind, because like obviously they weren't intending it, but I think like for the most part it does add up.
Yeah.
Especially because a lot of people will say that the smoke monster was trying to kill Locke in season 1, but I think he was actually just trying to drag Locke into the temple underground sort of area where he was able to brainwash like Rousseau's people.
I see.
Which was interesting. Anyways.
Yeah. Also, Kate now says, yeah, we just got to kill Smokey.
Yeah. Also, this is where the Jacob flashback episode would have been, right? It's like right now.
I see.
Yeah, anyway, so now I think... No, we're not at the final episode yet. We're at the penultimate episode.
Alright.
Of the show. Yeah.
So now...
So they're like, okay, we have to go find Desmond because the smoke monster wants him dead, so clearly he's important.
And now, meanwhile, we get back to Ben, Richard, and Miles. I gotta say, it feels odd that, like, they're still on about blowing up the plane when I kind of feel like we've moved on past that.
I mean, blowing up the plane would stop the smoke monster from leaving the island.
I guess, since the submarine isn't an option anymore. I guess. It just feels like they don't even realize all the shit that's happened.
Well, they haven't. They weren't there. They were on some other part of the island.
What a bunch of dopes for not being there.
Yeah, so they're gonna go get C4 from Ben's old house, and as they're walking there, Miles he hears Alex's from her
nice just
grave.
Way, like season 6, they're putting in little scenes that help close off everything.
Yeah, little scenes.
And then we get that. Yeah, so
They get the C4 out of
and then
Ben's
Widmore's
house.
here, and my reaction here was, Ben, you should just shoot him.
Well,
Anyway, Widmore
Yeah.
just kind of bullies Ben, saying he's several steps ahead of him, and he already had the.
well, to be fair, he's like your entire plan for several days has been blow up the plane that I already have rigged with C4. Okay.
And then he says Jacob told him to come to convince him what he had to do, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, Smokey's coming."
Yeah. So then we get Sawyer feeling guilty over the bomb, being like, I killed him, didn't I?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you kind of did in the same way that Jack killed Juliet. If you want to go that route, but if we're gonna go that you didn't kill them, then Jack did not kill Juliet. That's what we're going with here.
Yeah, and then
Oh, also I forgot to say about the whole submarine blowing up. There's another joke where it's like, oh, just a couple episodes from the end, time to kill off all the minorities.
haha.
I mean, technically they still have
Yeah.
Hurley, but
We still have Hurley. We still have Miles.
oh right, Miles. I always yeah, but he's not a candidate, so or whatever.
He's just a cool dude. Too cool for all this shit. Anyway,
So then Hurley sees like the kid version of Jacob who runs off with his own
yeah,
ashes.
so we're just not gonna get that
because
explained.
Nope.
Sure. Anyway,
Like I said, I was like, I forget where this is going. Apparently, that's the end of that.
well, yeah, so he wants the ashes, and then we find Jacob's burning the ashes, and when they burn out, we'll never see Jacob again, so we gotta talk to him now.
Yep. And meanwhile, then Ben is like, you know what? If the Man in Black's coming, I'll just go talk to him. Like, whatever.
Richard-
He's gonna find us
And
eventually.
then Richard is also like, no, I'll go talk to him, and it goes a lot better for Ben than it does for Richard.
Yeah, he just immediately texts Richard, no hesitation.
And then Smokey just tells Ben, you gotta kill some people, but you can have the island. And Ben, he's lost everything to the point that he's just like, sure. Like, I feel like at this stage, the island doesn't even matter that much to him. He just, like,
It's like, I feel like I get it.
I get
it.
It's
But also,
he's going through the motions of caring about that, I think, because there's
it's
nothing
like,
else to bother caring about.
but also, this is why I wish the Alana storyline didn't just end with her getting blown up here, because the whole thing with him and Alana, of him being like, I sacrificed everything just for my power on the island, and look what it got me. It's like, it's horrible. And then he goes right back to do it. It's just, it's frustrating.
I think he has nothing to lose. I think
Like, I get why he wants to kill Widmore. Like, killing Widmore, yes,
that
okay.
Ben is completely starving, and you give a starving man a tiny piece of bread, and maybe he's, it's not going to fill him, but he's going to take it.
Yeah, okay, so... Anyway, Ben's like, yeah, Widmore is hiding in my closet. Let's go. And the Man in Black just kills that woman with Widmore because we're done with her character.
Widmore says, don't talk to him, so she's useless. Widmore says, he will kill Penny, and Widmore says, I brought Desmond because his electromagnetic resistance, and then he whispers a little more, and then Ben shoots him with a cold line. He doesn't get to save his daughter.
Yeah, which is really cool, but it's also like, Ben, remember when you tried to shoot her and also still couldn't? Okay. So then the main group, they get to meet Jacob.
Feel like it's not even about whether Penny dies. It's about not letting Widmore, feel like he saved his daughter,
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, then the main group, they meet Jacob, and...
You can all see him now.
Well, Kate is first of all pissed at him because she's like, she's really, son and Jan and Saeed, they died because you wrote their name on a wall. He's basically like, yeah. Yep.
And he will tell them what they died for, and one of them is going to have to start protecting the island. So he says he made a mistake, was putting Smokey in the heart. Because of that, they might all die, so he needs a replacement. And Sawyer's like, why do we suffer for your mistake? And Jacob's like, your lives sucked.
Well, yeah, he says, he's like, I was doing just fine until you dragged me to this rock. And he goes, no, you weren't.
Yeah. I mean,
that's why I chose all of you.
Like, okay, let's go through this. Hurley, terrible mental health-wise. I feel like Hurley could have figured himself out, but it was hard. Jack?
Oh my gosh, wait a minute. I completely forgot this other point I was trying to make about how the Man in Black can't kill people specifically. Yeah. And just because you said Hurley's mental health issues. Remember the episode where he envisioned his old, like, like from the mental hospital, the guy he used to see, right? And the guy's like, "Oh, none of this is real, and you should kill yourself." Like, there's a whole thing of like, what if that was the Man in Black just trying to get Hurley to just kill himself? Like, because he can't kill him directly, but like that puts a new spin on that kind of episode, which I think is interesting.
Because that never really got explained. We never got like a conclusion of what that was. Could be.
Mm-hmm. That's my personal explanation. That's what I like to go with for that episode.
Anyway, so your life sucked, and Kate was crossed off because she became a mother. But I like that Jacob's like, it's no biggie. You want the job, you can still have it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's see, who else was there? Jack, obviously, insane daddy issues.
I feel like Jack and Hurley are kind of okay because, Jack is someone where, yes, his life sucked, but I could see him, still going for the rest of his life, and he would never truly be happy, but he'd be stable enough. And if he was only temporarily really bad because he lost his dad. And it's like Sawyer and Kate, they're the ones whose lives really sucked.
Yeah, but you can also see, when Sun and Jin came to the island, they were basically suffering with a completely broken marriage. Like, obviously, it got repaired on the island, but...
It's like, Jack and Hurley, I think that a therapist could solve their problems. Sawyer and
I don't know, a therapist really didn't solve Hurley's problems.
Okay, a good therapist. Anyway, it's like Sawyer and Kate, not a chance. Also, a therapist couldn't solve Hurley's guilt at people dying problems. I do think they could help solve of his depressed while rich problems. Actually, I guess, the curse... I'm talking the curse aside, The curse is just a curse, That's not even a mental health problem. You're just literally cursed.
Yeah. So, then eventually Jack is like, no, I'll do it. I will go
because
be the new Jacob because I'm the main character.
As Smokey says later, kind of the obvious choice.
Yeah.
And, I will say a few episodes back, I did call, it's Jack or Hurley.
Yeah, and I was... In my head, I was laughing so much. I'm like, "Oh boy, it's because it's both." Like you're more right than you can even possibly know.
They are the two where it makes sense and fits.
Yeah. So anyway, Jacob does the ritual to Jack that the mother did to Jacob.
Yep, it's just give him some water.
Yeah.
And Jack is just immortal now. And I like that this happens before the end of the show. It's not like Jack at the end becomes immortal and we don't see it. We get to see some of Jack being this guy. And honestly, I totally get why they killed off Jack and why self-sacrifice fit his arc. But at the same time, I do feel like... I just kind of like the... I feel like our main character becoming immortal, and we're not going to cop out of that. We're just actually going to let it happen and, see the person he starts to become. I would have enjoyed that for Jack. And I think that the show wasn't going to go for it, but I do find the idea interesting that, if he's immortal, if anything, dying isn't an escape from his problems. We have to see him actually continue to grow. I just think there's potential there. I don't think that the show... I feel like the show didn't need to kill him off, and I feel that way for more than just, I like the character, I don't want him to die.
Honestly, I feel the opposite way. I felt like there was no resolution for Jack other than him to die on the island.
I guess that's kind of how I feel like there's no resolution. I feel like, there's no resolution, Jack. You still gotta figure yourself out, but you got thousands of years to do that. That's kind of, the note that I like.
I guess, but it's... I don't know. I don't want something of I don't like those endings where it's well, maybe we'll find an answer in the future. I'm like, no, give me a resolution at the end of the thing you're showing me. That's just how I feel about, stories and stuff.
Yeah, I guess for me it's the character became something incredible. I want to see them get to be that incredible thing, but it's so temporary for him.
Well, I feel like that's even kind of interesting because, Jacob obviously did it for thousands of years. And what he says to Jack is, he doesn't say you have to do this forever. He says... You just have to do it as long as you can. And for Jack, as long as he can meant just a couple days, because that's what it took to stop the island from being destroyed, and then someone else can do the job.
Jacob probably wouldn't have done it for so long if he didn't accidentally create Smokey. I feel like the end that we kind of get it implied that we're going to have more more rapid replacements than Jacob. And I feel like that is actually how it's supposed to be. Jacob just kind of had to stick there because he created a problem that wasn't going away.
Yeah. So anyway, the Man in Black's group, they get to the well, and Desmond's not there, and the Man in Black like, I'm gonna destroy the island.
Yep.
Because...
There's a few things I feel a little unresolved to me that I'm not entirely satisfied with the ending on. And one of them is I feel like we don't get that much, like, resolution. Like, I feel like there's so much planning with, like, oh, Smokey has a plan, and then Widmore has a plan, and, like, and Jacob has a plan, and what are all their plans for? And then we kind of just end up with, like, I feel like some of those plans we don't really get explained what they were, or we don't get to see what they were, because then we kind of just switch to, oh, no, we're destroying the island.
Well, I think that's what their plans were. Widmore's plan was probably what Jack's plan ultimately kind of was.
I mean, kind of skipping ahead here, but I feel like, was Jacob's plan just that if they unplugged it, they could kill Smokey and then they could plug it back in? Because it just makes it feels odd to me that, like, we get all this faith of, like, you know, Desmond is supposed to do this. I mean, he's Jacob's failsafe. We're going to do this. And then it's just like, no, Jack was just wrong and Smokey was right. I just feel like stuff like that just makes me think, like, then what was Jacob's plan? What were they supposed to do? Is it this? I don't know.
What do you mean Jack was wrong?
I mean, yes, it worked, but I just feel like it's odd. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure why I feel unsatisfied, but it's not like, oh, Lost ends terribly on satisfaction. I think that some of the things the show goes for are just not how I prefer things, and I'll get more into that later.
I don't know. I guess so. I don't know. I liked it. So anyway, now we get a montage of everyone getting ready to go stop the Man in Black from putting out the magical light.
Yeah. And, yeah.
And so, Sawyer's like, hey, I'm gonna have to go get Desmond, and they make a joke about how Kate used to always follow along, and...
Also, by the way, a plot of Ben feeling nothing works so much better than a plot of Sayid feeling nothing.
Absolutely. I 100% agree.
They didn't even, like, with Sayid, they had to, like, explain to the audience, I feel nothing, and it's just like, you know, it doesn't fit that well. Like, that's why you had to explain it. With Ben, you don't even have to say it. We can tell, and it works.
Yeah. So Jack says, you know, the island is the only thing in his life that he hasn't ruined.
He's gonna ruin it.
Well, he's gonna tell you, you know, it's...
He's gonna temporarily ruin it. A controlled ruin.
Yeah, a controlled demolition to, you know, it's like cutting off a gangrenous pinky.
Oh, he's the surgeon.
You gotta... That's what I was going for. Yeah, you gotta sometimes cut it off for the whole body to feel better, you know?
Anyway, you get Sawyer getting to...
Well, before that, we have Kate saying, you know, nothing is irreversible, because she's like, oh, I still love you, Jack, we can have a life, but
and
no,
unplugging
they
the thing
can't.
Isn't irreversible either. Ties into a lot.
Exactly, yeah.
And so...
I didn't even think about that. You're absolutely right.
Sawyer watches Smokey, and then it's like, oh, someone beat us both. And Sawyer just, like, hits... Sawyer just, like, said, oh, yeah, Sawyer's like, we're not candidates anymore. Doesn't matter. And then he just hits Ben and grabs the gun and leaves.
Yeah, and then Ben thought that, you know, destroying the island was a metaphor, which it is not.
And then we get to...
And then we see that Rose and Bernard rescue Desmond.
It is awesome, and for a moment I was confused at how old they were, and then it's like, no, they got flashed back to the present.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is really nice that we get to see them again near the end, just, you know, bookend everything. Like, they're really just chilling. Like Hurley is going to be in charge of the island, and during that time, Rose and Bernard are still just going to be chilling there.
Yeah, and Rose and Bernard, you know, they're like, we broke our rule with you because we don't get involved in any plot bullshit, but we did it to save you. And then, you know, the Man in Black shows up and is like, well, I'll kill them if you don't come along. And Desmond's like, okay.
We moving onward.
Yeah.
And we also get, so we get a bit where Desmond just assumes they're going somewhere with a bright light. He gets what's going on now. Like, Desmond, more like Zero Stressmond.
That's horrible. I should cut that, but I'm going to leave that in so that anybody who made it this far can hear that horrible pun.
Anyway, we also get, someone's calling Ben on the walkie, but, it's like, that was nothing. And,
yeah, so Miles, he found Richard,
yeah,
and he's like, hey, yeah, we're still going to go blow up that plane, right?
He's still on about that. And so, Richard has his first gray hair now, and he realizes he wants to live, and I'm glad for that for him. He's not going to be
Yes, good resolution for Richard.
Richard is leaving the island. He's going back to, the regular world. He's going to get an iPhone. Wait, he has left the island before. It's not like he's been stuck.
Yeah.
But still, he's going to just start living a life.
Well, is he going to get an iPhone? It's currently 2007.
I think he could get a Nintendo DS.
Just imagining Richard Alpert playing on a fucking Nintendo DS.
Yeah, he's gonna play one of those games where you have to blow into the microphone.
Ooh, those are always the best games. Yeah. They really port well when you're playing them on an emulator.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, so when we all meet up, Kate just immediately tries to shoot Smokey. Doesn't work.
Well, before that, they find the penis in the water. He didn't die.
Yeah. Well, you can't kill Lapidus. You can't kill Frank.
I have a video to show you about that exact thing you just said once we're done here.
Anyway, when we meet up, then, Smokey says, you're kind of the obvious choice. Jack volunteered, and he says, I'm going to go with you. You only think you'll destroy the island, where I'm just going to kill you. And, I guess it does technically work out. So I guess maybe it is Jacob's plan.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just going to be Jack, Men in Black, and Desmond going to the light. And we get Hurley saying that he believes in he believes in Jack, which is, I love it.
Yeah, it's good to see. So Desmond tells Jack, this doesn't matter. He's going to go somewhere else to where they can be with the ones they love. Jack is there too. They sat next to each other on the flight.
Yeah, we sat next to each other on 815 and it didn't crash, it just landed. And yeah, what do you take of all that?
So we just have another timeline where things are good?
Well, what I will say is, the plot of Season 5 at the end was Jack thinking that if he blew up the island in the past, then 815 would never crash.
So they did create another timeline, they just didn't get to go to it?
I'm not going to say anything more. All I'm saying is that was the plot line of Season 5.
You know what?
So, and then Jack says, no, it does matter, because whatever happened, happened.
And so Ben calls Miles and says, hey, don't blow it up, and then there's Claire, and
Richard's like, hey, don't be crazy, come home, and she's like, no.
She thought they were with Smokey and were going to kill her. Yeah. Anyway,
so then Jack and the Man in Black are lowering Desmond into the cave, and the Man in Black brings up, he's like, doesn't this remind you of anything?
And
maybe there's a button and we can argue about whether or not to push it.
Jack is just like, you're a fake, fuck you, Locke was right about everything.
Yeah, if you awake, you a fake.
It does boil down to having faith. Jack isn't even really doing anything, he's just choosing to have faith. I guess that is within the themes of the show.
Yeah, and then so Desmond, he sees a bunch of skeletons in the cave, and a glowing pool of water with a stone in it, and the water's apparently insanely electromagnetically charged.
The ultimate toilet.
Yes. And
it's a toilet because that's where all of humanity's shit goes down, and we have to keep the shit from coming back up.
Here's where I get really confused. So Desmond goes in, and it's a scene where he's clearly in agonizing pain, even though he survived how many electromagnetic things. And he pulls out the stone, and then you see on the stone, inscribed on it, there are Egyptian hieroglyphs, and then even lower than the Egyptian hieroglyphs is cuneiform script, and cuneiform is from Mesopotamian civilization. And it's wait, so is this implying that this was created somehow? This isn't a natural.
I think that the people there could have just found this and been like, "This is special. Let's carve in it."
But the carved part is the stuff that he pulls out. How did they pull it out and carve onto it? Well, the island.
Maybe you never know. Maybe they had a.
Why not just have this be a rock? Just be a rock.
Maybe the Phoenicians had a whole plot line where they accidentally broke the plug and they had to make a new one.
Let's go with that. Sure. I don't know. It's just like this is this kind of stuff where I'm like, they threw it in there to seem interesting, but it just raises a million questions that there is absolutely no answer to.
Anyway, so lava starts coming up, and Jack punches Smokey, and he bleeds. So apparently, doing this makes him mortal now.
Well, all his powers came from that light.
Yeah,
so
it does work as a plot. But, Smokey...
Yeah, and then Miles calls, and it's like, hey, we're going to take off soon, so get your asses over here.
Jack is knocked out, he gets him up, and he tries to get Desmond back, can't. And there's a tree on top of Ben.
And then they just forget about that, and then Ben's fine, and it's like, I don't know why that was a scene.
No biggie.
Also, so when the island was being destroyed, this is where the volcano was supposed to be exploding. I even believe that the fight with Jack and the Man in Black was supposed to take place like by the volcano.
That would be something.
And I think like he was supposed to be kicked. I think he was supposed to be like kicked into the volcano at the end.
That would be pretty epic.
Like,
so it is very American TV that the ultimate resolution is just that Jack and the smoke monster have to fight, and it's very American TV that the final resolution is that then another character sneaks up and shoots him.
Well, to be fair, I mean, it's not... Seasons 1 through 5 didn't end with, like, a fight that was resolved.
See,
the resolution was with...
That's kind of why it feels odd to me. Like, I like stories that have a lot of fighting, but it feels like that's not what Lost is about, so it's odd to me that that's the resolution.
Also, it's so funny that you get one camera angle of, like, Jack jumping to go punch the Man in Black, and it looks like he's jumped like fucking 12 feet in the air, and then there's like a commercial break, and it cuts back to that same scene from a different angle, and it's like, oh, he jumped half a foot. Like, also, Jack, he gets stabbed here in sort of the abdomen and then in the neck. I also during the scene where he was stabbed in the abdomen, they accidentally forgot to replace the knife with a fake knife for one of the scenes, and he almost did get stabbed.
Oh shit.
Yeah, Kate shoots the Man in Black, and Jack kicks him off a cliff.
Resolving that Kate was the one who wanted to kill him and shoot him so bad just because she cared about his son, I think.
Yeah, and then, Jack makes a whole count to 5 joke, and, the island is still being destroyed.
You get Frank and Miles trying to make sure it works, the plane. They gotta get, everyone's gotta get to the plane.
Yeah, and Kate's like, just come with us, just let the island sink and let's go. And Jack's like, no, I have to go save the island.
Gotta plug up the evil, gotta plug up the toilet. So
yeah,
then,
Sawyer, he says thank you for everything, and Ben and Hurley are like, you know what? I'm not leaving. It's fine.
Yeah, and
then we get Jack and Kate kissing, and they say, I love you, and it's like, okay, that's kind of sweet, but it's also kind of like, after 6 seasons, I kind of wanted something more to that resolution, but okay.
Thing. I think I pointed this out a long time ago, but while Jack and Kate are better, when Kate and Sawyer get romance, they get to just be chilling and having fun together, and when Jack and Kate get romance, it always has to be during really serious plot stuff. We never get them just actually being fun together.
They had fun when they were just living at the beach camp sometimes.
Not enough.
Okay, so anyway, so then Kate and Sawyer, they're gonna try and get to that plane as fast as possible.
Yep.
And it's clear that Jack is gonna die to save the island, and Hurley is very upset.
He's coming to the injuries, and Jack's like, Jack makes Hurley immortal, basically assuming that he didn't need to do the chanting and he just had to give someone water.
Yeah, I mean, considering that's what does happen, I just assume that's how it works.
I think it's just like, if you're the one and you share water, it works. And I think it's kind of bookending it that they use, I believe, an oceanic water bottle.
Oh, yeah, 100%. It's... I mean, it's a little bit cheap and indulgent, but it's like, it hit me. It's like, it's going back to the beginning.
They're doing what, I think it's fine for the show. It's bookending.
Yeah, remember the early episodes where the stress was that they couldn't find enough water, and then now we're defeating the embodiment of all evil.
Now, Desmond's alive, but I do think it's whack that that Jack is like, you, the one resistant to electricity, you don't put it back in, I'll do it. But I guess...
I think it's still like... I think it's the implication is that even with his resistance, Desmond couldn't survive it a second time.
I guess.
And, Desmond, he thought that by putting out the light, he would leave, and he would go to that weird thing he was talking about earlier.
The last time he got shot, that happened, I guess.
And then Jack says to him, I'll see you in another life, brother. Which is... Ooh. It's so good.
Everything. And then we get Kate finds Claire just like, no, Kate, we'll get you a shower. You'll figure out how to be a mom. Don't worry about this.
Yeah. So they all get on the plane. Jack manages to put the plug back into the hole there.
And then it kind of doesn't work, and then it starts working because the water pours. I was thinking, like, nah, Jack, you gotta jam it in better. Hit the top of it.
Now then, Ben and Hurley, they pull up who they think is Jack, but it turns out to be Desmond. And then Hurley's like, I don't know what to do. And Ben says, you know what? You're going to help people like you always have.
Yep.
Which is, it's so sweet.
It makes sense for Hurley's character that he becomes the replacement.
Yeah, and then he asked Ben to be his number 2, which is like, it's like, that's honestly all Ben ever wanted in his life was to like be the Richard.
Yeah, he doesn't want to be Jacob so much as he wanted to be with Jacob and like, just get a little confirmation from Jacob when he was doing things right. And I do feel like Ben is at a place where he can redeem himself. Like, he understands why he was such a fucked up person. He understands it was bad.
Yeah, and then we get a scene of, however, sometime later, Jack, he wakes up in that pool, and he wanders, to that bamboo forest that he woke up in at, the first time that plane crashed.
Once you see the bamboo, I'm like, oh yeah, we're ending that way.
Yeah, he collapses, and Vincent shows up there, and Jackie sees the plane taking off, and he closes his eye, and he dies. And to me, that's still really impactful. This is like my third or fourth time seeing this now, and to me, it's still in a really impactful scene of just... I don't know, I think it just ends in such a good way. For all the ups and downs with Jack's character... I really like how it ends. I think it's so sweet.
I think for me, I just wanted a little more of him doing something just because I think the best moment of it where he does something is that he chooses to put the plug back in, not Desmond. That's pretty much the best part. I guess that's what makes it work because him fighting the Man in Black is like, was it satisfying and cool? Yes, but it didn't feel that Jack to me, It didn't feel like this is why Jack had to be the one and had to be the one to save us. Like, but him putting the plug back in, that does work.
Yeah. And then, I think I do have to thank the guy who put together this whole Chronologically Lost because he shows the whole Lost ending and he like gives a good space before it goes into this new man in charge thing. Because it's like...
Is this like DVD extras?
This was a DVD extra. Which, it's like, it is part of it. This is exactly where it goes in the timeline. You have to kind of put it here. It wouldn't make sense to put it in the next episode. But it's also like, it kind of, to go from Jack dying like that to this, it's a little bit undercutting.
This literally feels like, like, they lampshade clearly. We're tying up the loose ends here. So we're just going to give you, like, this is why the Dharma shipments were still being sent. They were getting automated messages and didn't realize the Dharma Initiative hasn't existed. And they demand answers, so...
Yeah, we deserve answers. We've been doing this for however many years.
They're lampshading everything about what the Lost fans want. And so we also get the explanation of why there were polar bears. And,
even though we already knew why there were polar bears, we didn't... And, they answer, why is there a bird that says something that sounds like it says Hurley? And the answer is it doesn't. It's just a weird bird. Why that guy was using an alias. Why is there a brainwashing room? Of course, we get to hear the lines saying, I think we're going to need to see that again.
And they do not get any more answers than this. Yeah, this was just to be cheeky. And then the other thing that they want to tie up is that Walt, we are going to pretend that he did have an ultimate purpose all along, and we just didn't have no idea what to do with him. So it's basically just that I think they're implying Walt.
Well, I do like that when Ben shows up, Walt's like, "Oh, you're gonna kidnap me again?" He goes, "I really am very sorry about that." Like,
and so I think they're implying that Walt will be the next replacement for Hurley.
yeah, and it's like, you know what? Fine,
Sure.
that's the way you make Walt special. He was destined to be another replacement of the leader of the island. There you go.
It wasn't ready for him yet, I guess.
Yeah, and he can help. Apparently, he's going to be able to help the ghosts.
Yeah, sure.
So you know what? Good for him. Let him help those ghosts. And then Hurley shows up to do a cameo, and it's like, you know what? I'm glad this does exist because it does at least tie up Walt.
It's they're DVD extras that are what DVD extras should be.
Yeah, it's
like
they needed something because
we can talk about the timing of seeing it right after Jack dies, but like that's not what matters.
Yeah, especially because for people in real life, what they did is they saw the finale, and then like several weeks later, if they were diehard fans and they bought it right away, then they get the DVD and then they can watch the scene separate of everything else. It's just it is just kind of awkward to see it here.
Yeah.
But there's nothing you can really do about that with the way modern format is.
In terms of this timeline, I think the show did a solid job of tying itself up. There are things I would change, like Sun and Jin dying. I might have handled Jack's ultimate purpose in a different way and made it not just fighting. But I do think that it ended fairly well. It bookended itself extremely well with how Jack... I just burped or something. It resolved itself extremely well with how Jack just, died in the same way we first saw him. There is a sense that this feels right. But they really shouldn't have killed Jin and Sun.
Yeah, it's a real sense of finality, and I think, again, I'll pull up this Michael Schur quote that he uses to end his series, where he says, it's the kind of ending where the audience will still be kind of surprised by it, but it couldn't have ended any other way. And I think that, to me, that rings true
Jack,
here.
Like, as much as I say I like the idea of just seeing Jack get to become an immortal and see how he has to live with that, Jack is always somebody who is going to sacrifice himself to save everyone else.
Yeah, and to me, as surprising as it was to have this whole plug business and have Hurley become the new god of the island and Ben become the number 2 and Jack die in that way and everybody else escape, it was kind of like, you know what? That's the ending that it should have had. I may disagree again, about killing Jin or something like that, or I disagree with some subplots or some plot points that happen throughout the series, as everyone will, pretty much. But I think since it ends in such a good point, it's good. I don't
know how people feel about the other timeline, but I've heard people say like, "Oh, Lost ended badly," and like, no, this is a good ending, and it's not a perfect one, but it's not like they fundamentally got it wrong. They fundamentally got it right. And I think if somebody talks about hating the Lost ending, they don't hate the Lost ending, they just hate the direction of the show in general in the later seasons.
Yeah, when people say the final season of Lost sucks, what they mean is the final season of Lost didn't answer everything scientifically like I wanted it to. It didn't spend.
They wanted more answers, and their last hope of those more answers was the final episode. And when that didn't give it, they blamed the final episode.
Yeah, it wanted to give the viewers an emotional resolution, which is what you should do, by the way, when you're making a television show, instead of giving a scientific answers, resolution, which I prefer.
I will say, I don't know how I feel about it after seeing the other timeline, but in this timeline, I would want to see Claire and Aaron reunite. I would want to see Sawyer and his daughter interact. I would want to see Jin. I would want to see Jin live and get to see his daughter. Just little things like that where I think there is value, and I get why they did it, in ending on the shot of Jack falling there and not, giving us more after that, but I would have liked to see those things. Because I think there's just a lot of dramatic tension set up that would be resolved by some of those things.
Well, I think you're going to understand more as soon as you start watching the next episode.
But it's like, the next episode is a different timeline, isn't it?
What do I say is the next episode, the next podcast that we're doing here, it will be covering episode 97, epilogue number 1, and 98, epilogue number 2.
Well, I am curious.
Yeah, it's a strange one. It's even funny to see the creator of Chronologically Lost, because I believe he started making the series during season 4, and he would just add to it in different ways as the series went on. You can read some of his old blog posts to see how he felt about trying to put together these epilogue episodes, which is it's pretty fun. But yeah, I'm really hoping that you're gonna like it, because I really like it. But I will say the epilogues are very self-indulgent. Like
It's
running a victory lap, basically.
I feel like a lot of other shows I wouldn't be down with it, and here I'm just like, you know what? It's Lost.
Yeah. So yeah. Anything else to say now that we've this is kind of the end of the plot. I will say the epilogues don't really have much in the way of plot. This is the end here.
7 out of 10.
7 out of 10. Okay. Not even an 8, really?
Too many flaws, too many weird points to get an 8. But it was worth watching, and there's nothing really like it.
And, okay, I will say, who was your favorite character?
I think my instinct is still to say Saeed. Like, peak Saeed was my favorite character. Maybe,
Yeah,
and I feel like, I don't know who else is near that. Jin, Hurley,
Yeah, I would say for me, Ben and Locke are like 1 and 2, and they're neck and neck. And I would say Hurley is probably my number 3 for just. I love her. I love all those characters. And
season 5 Miles too, because season 5 was where they really knew how to work him into the plot. Like season 6 Miles, they didn't know what to do, but they liked him too much to.
Yeah, they'd already resolved his character arc.
They liked him too much to kill him off.
Yeah. It's okay. What I also will say is here. What was, from what you've seen now, what was your favorite arc of the show? Was it originally the 70s arc, all the backstories, and then season 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6?
I have to think about that. Probably the 70s. Which is odd, because I did watch it without context.
I was, that's strange too. Is when I watch the series normally, season 5 is my favorite. But season 5 is so broken up when you watch it chronologically that it, like a third of the season gets destroyed because it's the time skips.
I feel like season 5 70s arc. There were a lot of parts of the show that were just somewhat depressing, and I feel like season 5 70s wasn't for me.
Yeah, it's okay, but I will say, I think watching it chronologically, I also think that the backstories are my favorite part. And it's, obviously it's kind of maybe a chicken and egg situation here, because the backstories are only so good. If the show was just the backstories, then you would say that's a horrible show. This is just a random event that didn't really tie in.
Set up for the ultimate.
But because you're watching these backstories, and they're all gonna meet. It's I don't know. I find that just so fascinating to be able to watch, especially because there's so many episodes of just backstories that it's like you get to know these characters just so well before everything all clashes and collides here.
Yeah. I mean, like I said long ago, there were moments at the start of season 1 that were meant to be character establishing moments that for me were that's so Jack.
Yeah, I will say it kind of is in some scenarios, especially with obviously Jin, that but yeah, instead of having character establishing moments, you have character moments. This is just what they would do given everything we know about them. Yeah. And even if some of the backstories are really fucking stupid, like Thailand or the weed farm,
Forgot about the weed farm.
But it's what? even if we take those season threes, you know what else was a season three backstory for Jack? That was attacking his father at the AA meeting. What was another season three flashback for Locke? That was when he his father pushed him out a window. It's for however couple stupid backstories there were at least double amazing backstories, I think.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. And yeah, this is probably my favorite drama show of all time. Obviously there are shows I like more, but I think the shows I like more are pretty much all comedies. When it comes to drama, the only other drama that I have actually seen all the way, although that's technically not true since it actually got revived, I think, earlier this year, and I haven't watched the new revived season, is like Dexter, and that's a show where it's good for the first half, and then the second half you don't even need to watch. But I think this is a show. If someone told me they dropped it after season 3, I'd be like, "No, what is wrong with you? Go watch the rest of that show."
Lost through.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just a nice character anthology series, and I really hope that you'll enjoy what the epilogues bring.
I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, well, I think that's all we have to say for this one. So I hope you join us next time.